A girl hires an actor to flirt with her boyfriend while hidden cameras roll to see if he'll cheat, and if he's loyal, even when offered money. Sierra Reed wasn't the jealous type, at least that's what she always told herself. But lately, things with her boyfriend, Jackson Lee, felt off. He was more distant. His phone seemed glued to his hand. When he started working late and skipping their Friday night movie rituals, her gut began to churn with unease. Sierra, a 26-year-old social media producer in Denver, had seen too many loyalty test videos to ignore the option. With her heart pounding, she made the call. She contacted a local talent agency and asked for someone who could play the role of a seductive stranger. Her plan was bold. Send the actress to flirt with Jackson, secretly film it all, and see if he'd resist temptation, especially when money entered the mix. Some might call it manipulative. Sierra called it necessary. What she didn't know, however, was that this test would unravel more than just her boyfriend's loyalty. It would expose deep truths about herself, their relationship, and the price of playing with trust. Sierra wasn't new to cameras. Her job revolved around editing influencer content, managing viral challenges, and creating compelling story arcs. But this was personal, and that made everything 10 times harder. She sat down with her childhood best friend, Malia, in their apartment kitchen, spilling every doubt, every pang of anxiety. Malia didn't immediately support the idea. Testing someone like this, what if you find what you're looking for? She asked, raising an eyebrow. Or worse, what if you ruined something that wasn't broken? But Sierra was resolute. She needed to know. With Malia reluctantly agreeing to help run the camera setup, they rented a cozy corner booth in an upscale cafe Jackson often visited. Discreet microphones and 2 tiny cameras would capture everything. The trap was set. She hired Aria Monroe, a 28-year-old actress with a magnetic charm and a killer smile. Aria was briefed thoroughly. Approach Jackson, act natural, flirt subtly, and escalate if he responded. If he passed, Sierra would feel relief. If he failed, well, at least she'd have the footage. The idea wasn't revenge, it was clarity, and Sierra was prepared for the truth, no matter how messy. Aria was no amateur. She had done hidden camera gigs before, but this one had more emotional weight than usual. She took her role seriously, asking questions about Jackson's preferences, demeanor, and the kind of women he found attractive. Sierra hesitated but answered, painting a full picture. Jackson, the 29-year-old freelance architect, was known for his quiet confidence, love of sketching, and a dry sense of humor. He loved loyalty, Sierra said. He often criticized men who cheated and once called cheaters spineless. That memory gave her pause, but not enough to cancel the plan. The day arrived. Aria walked into the cafe at exactly 1:45 p.m. and took a seat at the bar, pretending to read. Malia, in disguise, was stationed 2 tables away with the remote feed. Sierra stayed hidden in a parked car outside, watching the live stream on her tablet. At 2:03 p.m., Jackson entered, headphones dangling around his neck, and ordered a cappuccino. Aria glanced up and smiled, smooth, natural, no pressure. "Is that the architect's sketchbook?" she asked, nodding toward his leather-bound notebook. Jackson chuckled. "Good eye, you know you're stationary," and just like that, the test had begun. Sierra's stomach twisted as she watched the screen. Aria was in full charm mode, complimenting Jackson's drawings, laughing at his jokes, leaning in ever so slightly. It was subtle but deliberate, like watching a dance choreographed down to the breath. Jackson, for his part, didn't recoil. He didn't flirt either, but he wasn't ignoring Aria. He answered her questions, shared that he was working on a mixed-use building design for a downtown project, and even admitted he frequented the cafe every Tuesday. When Aria accidentally brushed his hand while reaching for her coffee, Jackson smiled, but then casually moved his cup further away. That made Sierra's chest tighten. Was that a good sign or just polite distancing? Then came the test. Aria leaned in, voice softer. "So, are you seeing anyone?" Jackson didn't hesitate. "Yeah, my girlfriend, Sierra. We've been together 3 years." Sierra exhaled hard in the car, eyes misting with relief. Malia, watching from inside, gave a subtle fist pump. But the test wasn't over yet. Aria smiled and said something that changed everything. "What if I offered you 10 grand to spend one night with me, no strings, no drama?" The silence that followed was deafening. Jackson stared at Aria, blinking as if trying to make sure he heard right. "You're joking," he finally said, letting out a stunned laugh. Aria, ever in character, leaned forward. "I'm not. 10,000 right now. I've got it in my purse. I just like taking risks, and you seem worth it." Jackson shifted in his seat. He looked away, jaw tight. "Look, I don't know who you are or what game you're playing, but I'm not interested, even if no one ever finds out," she added. Jackson stood up. "That's the thing. I'd know. He picked up his coffee and sketchbook, tossed a $5 bill on the counter and left. No further words, just a clean, clear exit. Sierra's hands trembled as tears filled her eyes. Relief crashed over her like a tidal wave, but so did shame. She had doubted him, set him up, secretly filmed him, and yet he had passed with flying colors. In her rush to find betrayal, Sierra had forgotten that real loyalty doesn't always need proof. Sometimes it just needs faith. The cafe emptied behind Jackson as he walked briskly down the street, unaware of the hidden lenses that had documented his every move. Back in the car, Sierra sat frozen, her mind caught between pride and guilt. She had gotten her answer, an answer many women would dream of. He had rejected temptation, he had stayed loyal, and yet, she didn't feel victorious. Malia returned to the car minutes later, eyes wide with disbelief. He passed Sierra, like passed with honors. Didn't even blink at the 10 grand. I know, Sierra whispered, her voice cracking. He was perfect, and I wasn't. They drove back in silence, the memory of his words echoing in their minds. I'd know. Sierra suddenly questioned more than just Jackson's loyalty. She questioned her own integrity. How had she let paranoia override trust? How would she look him in the eyes now, knowing what she'd done? What started as a trap to uncover lies had revealed something else entirely. That trust isn't proven through tests, it's shattered by them. That evening, Sierra sat alone in her room, phone in hand, replaying the footage over and over. She watched Jackson's face as he processed the bribe. The disbelief, the insult, the unwavering answer. Her heart ached. Not because of what he did, but because she had ever expected something worse. Malia entered with a bowl of popcorn, trying to lighten the mood. At least now you know you've got a golden guy. But Sierra didn't smile. Yeah, and I betrayed that gold. What do you mean? I tested him, Malia, with hidden cameras. I hired someone to seduce him. I invaded his privacy. Even if he never finds out, I'll always know. Malia sat beside her, suddenly serious. So what are you going to do? That question sat in Sierra's chest like a stone. She could bury the truth, pretend this never happened, and enjoy the peace of knowing he was loyal. Or she could tell him, and risk losing him for good. Either choice came at a cost. And for the first time since the plan began, Sierra wasn't sure she was ready to pay either. The next morning, Jackson called. Hey babe, sorry I was weird yesterday. Some random girl hit on me at the cafe. Super awkward. Sierra's throat tightened. Oh yeah, what did you do? Left, fast, felt like a setup or something, just didn't sit right. His tone was light, but Sierra could hear the unease behind it. He was trying to make sense of what had happened, and he was still being honest with her, even though she hadn't earned that honesty. They made plans to meet for dinner, but Sierra canceled last minute. She needed space, not from him but from her guilt. The following day was no better. She avoided his texts, dodged his calls, and buried herself in editing work. Malia tried to intervene, but Sierra brushed her off, retreating into silence. What began as a one-day experiment had spiraled into emotional chaos, and no matter how many times she watched the video, it didn't heal the wound she'd created in her heart, or the distance now stretching between her and the man she loved. Unable to speak the words aloud, Sierra sat at her desk and began to write. A letter, raw, confessional, terrified. Jackson, you've always trusted me. You've shown me nothing but loyalty, even when I didn't deserve it. But I let doubt whisper louder than love. I set up a test, a hidden camera, a paid actress, a trap you didn't ask for. You passed, flawlessly. And I failed in every way that matters. She poured everything into it. Her fear, her guilt, her admiration, her regret. By the end, the page was tear-stained and wrinkled, but it was honest. She folded the letter, slipped it into an envelope, and held it in her hand for over an hour. But she didn't mail it. She placed it in the drawer of her nightstand and stared at it as if the truth might disappear with enough distance. Confession, she realized, is never just about the words. It's about the courage to accept whatever comes after. And she wasn't quite ready for that yet. 3 days later, Jackson showed up at her apartment unannounced. The sun had just dipped behind the horizon, casting golden hues across the living room floor. Are you okay? He asked as she opened the door, eyes searching hers. You've been distant. Sierra looked down, her voice catching. I've just been overwhelmed, work and stuff. He stepped inside, hesitated, then wrapped her in a long, silent hug. She didn't deserve it, but melted into it anyway. They sat on the couch, a quiet calm between them. I keep thinking about that girl at the cafe, he said, finally. It was so strange. Like she knew me, like someone sent her. Sierra froze. I thought maybe you had something to do with it, he continued. But that would be crazy, right? She opened her mouth, closed it, her heartbeat roared in her ears. The moment stretched. No, she whispered, it's not crazy, just complicated. Jackson turned toward her, confused, and Sierra knew the moment of truth had arrived, whether she was ready or not. Sierra's voice was barely audible. "Jackson, please don't hate me." He leaned forward, concern etched on his face. "Sierra, what's going on?" She took a deep breath, her hands trembling in her lap. "It was me. I set it up. The girl at the cafe, the flirtation, the money. It was all a test, to see if you'd stay loyal." Silence crashed down on them like thunder. Jackson blinked, slowly absorbing her words. "You hired someone to tempt me. I thought something was wrong between us. You were distant. I panicked," she said quickly. "I needed to know if I could still trust you." He stood up, pacing, visibly shaken. "You didn't trust me, Sierra. You invaded my privacy. You turned me into a lab rat." "I know," she cried. "And I regret it. I hated every second of it, but you passed. You walked away." "That's not the point," he snapped, his voice cracking. "You didn't believe in me. You didn't talk to me. You filmed me like I was your enemy." Sierra buried her face in her hands, sobbing. "I don't have any excuse. I was wrong." And for the first time, Jackson didn't rush to comfort her. Jackson stayed the night, but not in her bed. He slept on the couch, his arms folded, staring at the ceiling in the dark. Sierra lay awake in her room, clutching the unopened letter she had nearly given him earlier. The morning came, but there was no breakfast shared, no playful banter over coffee, just silence. Before leaving, Jackson spoke softly. "I need time." Sierra nodded, eyes brimming with tears. "Take all you need." As the door shut behind him, the weight of her actions crashed into her all over again. She had gotten the truth, but lost the peace that was supposed to come with it. Trust, she learned, doesn't break with betrayal alone. It can shatter under suspicion too. She texted Malia a single sentence. "He knows." The reply was immediate. "I'm coming over." But Sierra didn't respond. She needed to face the emptiness alone. And perhaps for the first time she deserved to. The days crawled. Sierra functioned, but barely. She kept working, editing video after video, watching strangers laugh, cry, confess. All things she couldn't do anymore. She didn't reach out to Jackson. She respected his request for space, even though every fiber of her being wanted to beg for forgiveness. Instead, she worked on herself. Therapy sessions, journaling, talking openly with Malia, digging into the reasons why she had doubted someone who had never given her a reason to. In one breakthrough moment, she realized the truth. It wasn't about Jackson's behavior. It was her own fear of not being good enough, of being left, betrayed, forgotten. She had projected her insecurity onto him and used a camera as a shield, and that realization hurt more than anything else. But it also sparked something new, growth. She knew that healing wouldn't win him back, but maybe, just maybe, it would prepare her to love better, whether with him or without him. 3 weeks later, Sierra walked into the same cafe where the test had taken place. She hadn't planned it, it was muscle memory. But as she ordered her coffee, she spotted him, Jackson, sitting in the same booth, sketchbook in hand, coffee half drunk. Their eyes met, her heart stopped. He gave a slight nod, not cold, not warm, just acknowledging. She hesitated, then walked over. "Mind if I sit?" He gestured to the seat across from him. "Sure." They sat in silence for a few moments. Then Jackson said, "I've been thinking about everything." Sierra swallowed. "Me too. I'm still hurt," he admitted. "But I can't pretend I didn't see the fear behind what you did. Doesn't make it right, but it makes it human." Tears welled in her eyes. "I've been working on myself, trying to understand why I doubted you." He nodded. "Good," she whispered. "Is there a chance we can start over?" Jackson looked out the window for a long moment, then he turned back. "Maybe, but no cameras this time." The road back was slow. Jackson didn't move back in. They didn't kiss on the first night they hung out again. Their conversations were honest, sometimes awkward, and occasionally painful. But they were real. They agreed to go to couples counseling, not because they were broken, but because they wanted to build something stronger than before. Sierra was transparent about her insecurities, her past relationships, and the root of her fears. Jackson shared his too, the pressure he felt to always be the good guy, and how much the test had shaken his belief in their bond. Together, they peeled back the layers of their relationship, exposing raw truths, ugly flaws, and beautiful intentions. There were no promises of forever, just a renewed commitment to honesty, and that was more powerful than any camera could ever capture. Several months later, Sierra ran into Aria Monroe at a local media networking event. The actress who had unintentionally changed the course of her life smiled warmly. "You look lighter," Aria said, sipping wine. "I feel it," Sierra admitted. They spoke candidly. Sierra thanked her for her professionalism, and Aria shared how the experience had made her rethink the ethics of loyalty tests. "I haven't done a gig like that since," Aria said. "Too personal. It's one thing to act, another to test someone's soul." They parted with a hug, both women forever linked by a strange emotional experiment that neither wanted to repeat. Sierra left the event with a deeper appreciation for boundaries, for second chances, and for the complicated, fragile but beautiful thing called trust. 1 year later, Jackson surprised Sierra with a weekend getaway to the mountains. They stood on the balcony of a small cabin, wrapped in blankets, sipping cocoa. Snowflakes fell around them like tiny confessions. Jackson handed her a sketchbook. She opened it. Inside were drawings, every chapter of their journey. The cafe, the argument, the silence, the healing. At the end, he'd drawn 2 figures holding hands beneath a tree. Underneath, he'd written, "This is us, unfiltered." Sierra smiled, tears slipping down her cheeks. They had come full circle. Not because they were perfect, but because they had chosen to stay present, vulnerable, and accountable. Their story became a private legend among their friends, a cautionary tale with a bittersweet ending that somehow evolved into hope. Sierra often spoke to young couples at relationship seminars, sharing her experience with brutal honesty. She didn't glamorize the test. She admitted it was a mistake, a betrayal of trust disguised as curiosity. But she also emphasized the importance of communication, of dealing with doubt before it becomes sabotage, of healing yourself before expecting someone else to be your peace. Jackson occasionally joined her, offering his perspective, the pain of being tested and the strength required to forgive. Their message was simple. Trust isn't found, it's built, and once broken, it takes both people to rebuild it brick by brick. Sierra never deleted the hidden camera footage, but she never watched it again either. It remained stored on an encrypted drive, untouched, not as a trophy, but as a reminder of where they had been, of how fragile love can be when fear goes unchecked. On their second anniversary after the incident, Sierra gave Jackson the drive. "I don't want to carry it anymore," she said. He took it, looked at it, then tossed it into the fire. They watched it burn together. Sometimes the past must be destroyed to make space for the future. Years later, when people asked them how they survived such a storm, they would laugh and say, "We didn't just survive it, we rewrote the ending." Sierra and Jackson didn't become a perfect couple, but they became an honest one. Their love story wasn't one of fairy tale simplicity, but one of tested boundaries, broken trust, and stubborn hope, because sometimes love doesn't bloom in perfect sunlight. Sometimes it takes a storm, a camera, and a second chance. And in the end, that was more than enough. If you found this story powerful, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more emotional journeys that dive deep into the heart. Stories that challenge, heal, and remind us all. Trust may bend, but it doesn't have to break.